Sonic Forces. I mean, where to begin? This game was such a colossal failure on so many levels. Immediately after it came out, it was panned by the entire community and is considered one of the worst Sonic games to have come out in recent memory. But why, you may ask? Well, I figured I'd go over it in this video bit by bit to explain a few things, and maybe then you'll realize why exactly this game stunk so horribly. From this point onwards in the video, I'll be breaking it up into multiple different segments talking about each gameplay type, which will all in the end tie into an overall theme. Starting with modern Sonic. It's here that many of the game's flaws are at their absolute worst, which leads into my first point. The levels in this game are way too linear. They're each comprised of one singular path that leads in the direction of the end. It doesn't allow for any sort of divergence. If there is even the slightest sense of freedom that you're able to change direction, it immediately corrects it by having you link back into the main path in no more than an instant. So you'll just end up holding forward, while in other games you were able to explore the vast variety of different directions and paths to see where they would take you. And another huge issue with modern Sonic is his boost. As Sonic, you can very quickly and easily accumulate boost, which you can then use to absolutely ram through all enemies, immediately destroying them without any struggle whatsoever. This makes the gameplay even more boring, as you'll likely find yourself just speeding around with no difficulty whatsoever, constantly holding forward and just obliterating everything. I mean, just look at this. Overall, soporific and uneventful. Now I'll talk about the Rookie. Overall, this gameplay type has a lot of the same issues as Sonic's because they're very similar, minus the boost because Rookie can't boost. He has actually a replacement for that, which I'm going to go over. They tried to introduce what are called Wispons. They're like weapons you can unlock that are used for different purposes throughout gameplay. And throughout the game, the player uses them for combat and traversing the map. The issue with the combat, although not as bad as Sonic's boost, it still gets really, really easy and predictable over time. And you're able to just blaze through waves of enemies without any trouble. As for stage traversal, that too gets repetitive, as they do nothing to keep each usage fresh or unique, instead sticking to the same application of the gimmick each time, making for a very, very boring experience that gets old fast. Now for classic Sonic. The sheer scale and intricacy of the original Sonic game maps cannot be understated. They were all so massive and elaborate, and there were so many paths that could be used to drastically alter gameplay, which allowed players to seek them out and learn more about them to see which ones worked best. With that in mind, does this game's version of classic Sonic do the same? Does it live up to the momentous standards set by the original? No. Yep, instead it does the same thing the rest of the game does, where there's only one single path and no freedom to traverse the map in different ways. Although I'll give it this, instead of being a very basic, straightforward, practically flat path like the others, at least it's fairly intricate and complex. And even though it's nowhere near the extent to which the original games had different paths, it still introduces things like floating platforms and stuff to go over. All in all, an improvement over the rest of them, but still not very good. All in all, I'd say Sonic Team grossly underestimated their audience. Assuming their audience was just a bunch of Tide Pod eating 7-year-olds who had only ever played Subway Surfers on their mom's Kindle, they proceeded to make a game that was extremely easy and linear. I mean, look at this. There's hints literally everywhere. But little did they know their consumer base consisted of avid to skilled gamers who appreciated a challenge. A group of people who ended up finding the game very boring and simple as a result of Sega's severe misunderstanding of their target demographic. All in all, I feel like this is a perfect example of Sega struggling to understand the wants of their audience and so under-delivering as a result, something that happens a lot. But I hope they improve their act and end up getting a good understanding of their audience so that they can produce really good games. Until then, though, that's about it. See you in the next one.